Hey folks, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a treat. We've been through a lot today on today's stream, and I thought I'd finally make good on the content that I teased a while back. We're going to take a look at Al Gore's keynote at San Francisco Climate Week from this year, just a few days ago. And we're gonna watch the entire thing because we saw clips of it, and those clips were dynamite, and I think it's gonna be a good time. So let's hear what Al Gore has to say. Okay.
Fulsome and overly generous introduction. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that, Evan, and to all of your colleagues at Climate Base. What a terrific organization. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Morgan Campbell and all of her colleagues at Climate Base for organizing what I know is going to be an extremely exciting week of events. I looked at the lineup. It's incredible what you all have got in store. Thank you very much for the energy and passion and enthusiasm. That's what it needs. This is a time to double down and triple down, and that's what we're doing. And I also want to thank the Exploratorium team for hosting us here tonight. I've been here before. This is a great organization. Thank you. Thank you very much. I especially want to acknowledge the presence here of my dear friend, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, who, she gets a little embarrassed when I use
fucking one woo at the San Francisco Climate Week. Damn, girl, you are not well liked.
Use this phrase, but everybody's using it. The greatest Speaker of the House of Representatives in the history of the United States. And Nancy, you and I want to acknowledge Paul Pelosi, who is my dear friend. Thank you. And Nancy, you and I have attended a lot of events over the years where we will hear this person or that person described in a grand, enthusiastic way. And sometimes there have been times when I think, well, that's a little bit over the top. But that's not the case with Nancy Pelosi. She is the absolute greatest and best, and thank you very much. And I want to acknowledge a rookie.
Let's not glaze Nancy Pelosi too much. I didn't know it was going to open this way.
Public servant who is only 3 months into the job, Mayor Daniel Lurie, and you are doing a great job, Dan. I remember when I was 3 months into my first job as an elected official, as a member of the House, and you can tell early on, and I've been getting such great reports from my friends all over the city in all walks of life, every parts of the city. So keep it up, keep it up. We're for you, we're for you.
Who's this guy?
And I want to acknowledge, if you'll let me acknowledge two
Al Gore.
organizations that are very, very important to me. There is a group of climate leaders trained by the Climate Reality Project's Bay Area chapter, and I appreciate you guys be here. One is here from the first.
Yeah, I don't get the feeling that I get the feeling that people like Nancy Pelosi, a lot of these neoliberal types, are just they have an affect that is insincere, and over time that becomes just like the mask they put on, you know?
First 50 that were trained 20, oh gosh, it's been 20 years ago. And I'm very grateful to my partner Colin LeDuc and our team from Generation Investment Management, which is based here in San Francisco for the U.S. headquarters. Generation is the sustainable investment firm that I co-founded with Colin and David Blood and 4 other partners back in 2004. We have been here since 2017, and San Francisco is such an important hub for Generation because we fully recognize the absolutely unique role that the Bay Area plays in shepherding the transition.
Oh yeah, like I bet Nancy Pelosi's basically just coasting along on like just raw animalistic instinct at this point. Like she's just ingrained her political maneuvering into just like her essence as a person, and she just can't turn it off anymore.
Transition to a sustainable economy. There is a distinct and diverse blend here of innovators and entrepreneurs, academics, investors, policy leaders, and executives who are dedicated to saving the climate and dedicated to implementing sustainability solutions. And in fact, many of the most successful investments we've made in our 21-year history have been right here in the Bay Area. That won't come as a surprise to you, but it's great to be in the presence of so many friends and colleagues and to be a part of this great community this evening. I do want to, before I launch into my remarks here, I want to pause to acknowledge the loss last night of one of the most powerful moral voices our world has ever heard, Pope Francis. His remains the single most inspiring text on the climate crisis that I have ever read, and I fully recommend. If you have not read it, it's long, it's very tightly organized, it's very deep in its analysis and its moral power, and I urge everyone to read it. And his moral teaching is especially important right now in our state. Do everything it possibly can to try to halt the transition to a clean energy future and a deep reduction in the burning of fossil fuels. Climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis, basically 80% of it. Many of you here today have likely felt the chilling effect of the policies and the rhetoric coming from Washington, D.C., and what the effect has been on businesses and investors and far beyond. The Dow Jones, of course, today fell another 1,000 points, and since Donald Trump's inauguration, it's gone down.
I can't wait for Papa Pizzabala's global wood oven treatise.
Papa Pizzabala is going to he's gonna get rid of the Bluetooth in the pizza ovens. He has my vote.
6,000 points. But while the most visible impacts of
Thank you for the two tier one subs,
the new administration is doing may be in the market for stocks and bonds, that's not the only thing that he has caused to crash. The trust market has crashed.
Yep.
The market for democracy has taken a major hit. Hope is being arbitraged in the growing market for fear. Truth has been devalued, and confidence in U.S. leadership around the world has plummeted. We are facing a national emergency for our democracy and a global emergency for our climate system. We have to deal with the democracy crisis in order to solve the climate crisis. The scale and scope of the ongoing attacks on liberty are literally unprecedented. With that in mind, I want to note that before I use what is not a precedent, I understand very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement. It was uniquely evil, full stop. I get it. But there are important lessons from the history of that emergent evil, and here is one that I regard as essential. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, a small group of philosophers who had escaped Hitler's murderous regime returned to Germany and performed a kind of moral autopsy on the Third Reich.
Here we go, baby!
The most famous of the so-called Frankfurt School of philosophers was a man named Jürgen Habermas, best known, I would say. But it was Habermas's mentor, Theodor Adorno, who wrote that the first step in that nation's descent into hell was, and I quote, the conversion of all questions of truth into questions of power. He described how the Nazis, and I quote again, attacked the very heart of the distinction between true and false, end quote. The Trump administration is insisting on trying to create their own preferred version of reality. They say Ukraine attacked Russia instead of the other way around, and expect us to believe it. At home, they attack heroes who have defended our nation in war and against cyber attacks as traitors. They say the climate crisis is a hoax invented by the Chinese to destroy American manufacturing. They say coal is clean. They say wind turbines cause cancer. They say sea level rise just creates more beachfront property.
This man got
Their allies in the oligarchic
backlash
backlash to climate action argue that those who want to stop using the sky as an open sewer, for God's sake, need to be more realistic and acquiesce to the huge increases in the burning of more and more fossil fuels, which is what they're pushing, even though that is the principal cause of the climate crisis. You may not be surprised to learn that this propagandistic notion of climate realism is one that the fossil fuel industry has peddled for years. The CEO of the largest oil company in the world, Saudi Aramco, has said, quote, "We should abandon the fantasy of phasing out oil and gas." His colleague, Exxon CEO Darren Woods, has claimed, and I quote, "The world needs to get real. The problem is not oil and gas, it's emissions." End quote.
My man pronouncing the name of the leader of the Third Reich to rhyme with littler. SMH.
G Klein, thank you for the $5 super chat. But yeah, I mean, like, dude's kind of on a tear. I'm enjoying this. I know he's pretty old, but like, wait, how old is Al Gore? He's literally 2 years younger than Trump. That's crazy.
American Petroleum Institute says we need, quote, "a more realistic energy approach," one that, you guessed it, includes buying and burning even more oil and gas. So allow me to put this question to all of you. What exactly is it that they want us to be realistic about?
I also forgot Gore could cook.
Their twisted version of realism is colliding with the reality that humanity is now confronting. The accumulated global warming pollution, because these molecules linger there on average about 100 years and it builds up over time, it's trapping as much extra heat now every single day as would be released by the explosion of 750,000 first-generation atomic bombs blowing up on the Earth every single day. Is it
Jesus Christ? What? That's a talking point we should maybe utilize more often. Like maybe we should talk about that a little bit more often. Like as opposed to like, oh, climate change, it's just this thing that happens, it's getting hotter. Like that can mean anything, but like when you put it into the context of, I'm sorry, was that 750,000 first generation nuclear warheads exploding every single day would create the same amount of heat that is trapped? Jesus.
Real first generation would be released by the explosion average about 100 years and it builds up over time. It's trapping as much extra heat now every single day as would be released by the explosion of 750,000 first generation atomic bombs blowing up on the Earth every single day.
Jesus.
Is it realistic to let that continue? Is it realistic to think that if we opt out of taking action to reduce greenhouse gas pollution, we'll be able to just wish it away and continue with business as usual? Well,
yeah, I mean, like genuinely, if there were 750,000 nuclear bombs hitting every single day, I think we'd want to do something about that. I think that might spur people to action. I don't think a lot of people would just be like, "Hey, you know what? Let's just keep living how we're living. Let's just keep doing our thing. Grill and chill."
Mother Nature makes a pretty good case against that argument. Every night on the TV news is like a nature walk through the book of Revelation. Is it realistic, for example, to continue stoking the risk of wildfire in California after what has already happened to so many communities here in Northern California? And just look at the devastation caused by the Los Angeles wildfires in January. Is it realistic to tell homeowners around the world that the global housing market is expected to suffer a $25 trillion loss in the next 25 years, 15% of all the residential housing stock in the world, if we do not change what we're doing? Is that realistic in their view? Is it realistic to continue quietly accepting 8.7 million deaths every single year from breathing in the particulate co-pollution that also comes from burning fossil fuels?
This, by the way, That 8.7 million number, by the way, is padded out by your gas stoves. Just as like a thing to remember, move away from gas stoves at your earliest ability to do so, because those things are dangerous as hell. Turns out breathing in the gases released when burning natural gas inside your home is bad for you, actually.
That is the number of people who are already being killed. And according to health expert, it is, and I quote, the leading contributor to the global disease burden. When you burn coal, oil, and gas, it puts the heat-trapping pollution up there, and it puts the particulate and 2.5 ppm pollution into the lungs of people downwind from where the facilities are burning the fossil fuels. Is it realistic, in their view, for governments to manage 1 billion climate migrants crossing international borders in the balance of this century? That's how many the Lancet Commission estimates will be crossing borders in the decades to come if we continue driving temperatures and humidity higher and making the physiologically unlivable regions of the world vastly larger by continuing to put 175 million tons of man-made heat-trapping pollution into that thin shell of the troposphere surrounding the planet. You know what that blue line looks like? That thin blue shell it's blue because that's where the oxygen is, and it's so thin if you could drive a car straight up in the air at highway speeds, you'd get to the top of that blue line in 5 to 7 minutes. That's what we're using as an open sewer. Is that realistic? I don't think it is. We've already...
Okay, I know it's a little tangent, but you guys want to see some like cool shit just on the talking point of just what we can do when we get away from gas stoves? Okay, this is not a sponsored segment, by the way. This is just I just really think they're fucking cool. So here, this image is really good. Basically, you can just make your countertop one big induction stove. Look at how cool that is. That person's cooking on their countertop, just directly on there. It's so cool. It looks like witchcraft. It's basically magic. It's basically cooking with magic. They're so cool. Induction stoves work with the electromagnets, and basically they resonate with like metal implements and heat them up. I know it's just induction, but it's cool as shit. And like if something is not in like a metal container and is just like, you know, stoneware or something, it's not going to react with this. It doesn't get hot everywhere on the countertop, just where the metal is touching the countertop. You know? It's so cool. Well, Buffalo Guy, one thing you can do, and one thing I did, find yourself like a really good cast iron at like a thrift store. You can find good cast iron, and like that shit will stay with you for life. You can pass that on to your grandkids. And it will also work on these. But yes, I also understand there are some people who just don't want to like switch their cookware or whatever. I understand. But like if you can, getting away from like gas burning stoves gonna prolong your life probably. Stainless steel is also fantastic. Yeah. I got a few all-clad pans. They're top tier. I can see how that could be dangerous though. Yeah, I mean, if you leave it on and just like forget that you're cooking this and then just like touch it without like proper precautions, sure. But genuinely, it only interacts with this pan. Like the stuff that is spilled on the countertop doesn't get hot. Like as you can see from here, he's just wiping up a spill. Like that's not going to be hot. Yeah, the pan is the only thing that gets hot. Honest question. Wait, you don't need specialized cookware. You just need metal. Yeah, it just needs to be metal. Like, I think you have to, like, double check that, like, your particular metal does work with it, but for the most part, like a cast iron is going to work just fine with this. Anything that's going to like react with magnets. So like aluminum's not going to work. A couple other things aren't going to work, but like anything that would interact with a magnet, it's going to work. What if you leave your phone on the counter by mistake? Well, your phone is probably not going to be able to resonate with the magnets like that. I don't think your phone is going to get cooked by this. Can't leave steel utensils on the counter. Well, you can still leave the steel utensils on the counter, just like not directly on the cooking surface area of the counter, you know, if the cooking surface is on. It doesn't use electricity. It does use electricity. You have to turn it on. Like you still have to turn the burners on. What is the point of this? The point is it doesn't use gas, and therefore you're not just gassing yourself constantly in a poorly ventilated space. And that's the point. I just think this is neat. I think this is as close as I can envision
theorized an
to using
induction
magic.
French top about a decade ago, and they're finally a reality.
An induction French top? I feel like you're making a joke, and it's going over my head. It's going over my head. I'm so sorry. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, though. One of the big reasons I like gas is it changes fast. When I use electric, it takes 10 minutes to heat up. How long does this take? It doesn't take that much time, is my understanding. I think it's faster than like electric top. Yeah, it's faster than traditional gas or electric cooktops. Anyway, enough about this. This is just neat.
Already seen, by the way, how populist authoritarian leaders have used migrants as scapegoats and have fanned the fires of xenophobia to fuel their own rise to power. And power seeking is what this is all about. Our Constitution, written by our founders, is intended to protect us against a threat identical to Donald Trump, someone who seeks power at all costs to get more power.
Hell yeah, Al. Al out here killing it. Yeah, it responds faster. My understanding is like it responds faster than either of those. Buffalo guy.
Imagine what demagogues would do as we continued toward 1 billion migrants crossing international borders. We could face a grave threat to our capacity for self-governance.
Oh.
Is it realistic to continue inflicting the
Sake Tanuki, French tops are cooking surfaces with different zones, where different zones have different temps. That's cool as shit. I hadn't even thought about something like that, but that's really neat. I like that. Thank you for introducing me to that concept.
The financial toll that the climate crisis is taking on the global economy? According to Deloitte, climate inaction will cost the economy $178 trillion over the next half century. And is it realistic to miss out on the economic opportunity that we could seize by going toward net zero? That over that same period, climate action would increase the size of the global economy by $43 trillion. A question with particular relevance in nearby Silicon Valley: is it realistic for the semiconductor industry to experience losses of up to 35% of annual revenues due to supply chain disruptions caused by the stronger and more severe cyclonic storms and supercell storms? Is it realistic to continue with a system of financing that leaves the entire continent of Africa completely out? Right now, the entire continent of Africa, fastest growing population in the world.
Damn, wait, Sake Tanuki, you worked in a Michelin restaurant? A man of many talents and facets.
Has fewer solar panels installed than the single state of Florida in the United States of America. That's a disgrace to the makeup of our financial system. But Africa has 3 times as many oil and gas pipelines under construction and preparing for construction to begin than all of North America. It is ridiculous to allow this system to continue as it is. How is that realistic or fair or just? Is it realistic for us, all of us here, to consign our children and grandchildren to what scientists warn us would be hell on earth in order to conserve the profits of the fossil fuel industry? The predictions of the scientists 50 years ago have turned out to be spot on correct. Their predictions just a few decades ago have turned out to be exactly right. Should not that cause us
Ooh, that
to
was a
listen
nice
more
hand
carefully
gesture.
to what they're warning us will happen if we do not sharply and quickly reduce the emissions from burning fossil fuels? Is that unrealistic to listen to a proven source of advice? This newfound so-called climate realism is nothing more than climate denial in disguise. It is an attempt to pretend there's no problem and to ignore the reality that is right in front of our faces. What's never present in this so-called realism is any credible challenge whatsoever to the conclusions of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. They never address that. They just wish it away and say, oh, it's unrealistic to actually do anything about it. I wish we could wish it away, but we cannot. The hard reality is that the fossil fuel industry has grown desperate for more capital. They're seeing their two largest markets wither away. Electricity generation, number one, transportation, number two. They've been losing their share of investment in the energy market to renewables, and so they're panicked. That explains why they are so aggressively using their captive policymakers to block meaningful solutions. Of course, as you know, they're way better at capturing politicians than they are at capturing emissions. They've grown very skillful at that. They are the wealthiest and most powerful industry lobby in the history of the world. They make the East India Company look like a popcorn vendor. They are the effective global hegemon. They have used their war chests and their legacy network of political and economic power to block any reductions of fossil fuel burning emissions, whether at the international conferences that we call the COPs, Conference of the Parties in the UN process, or at the global negotiation for a plastic treaty. They blocked anything there too. Why? They're losing the first market of electricity generation because 93% of all the new electricity generation installed worldwide last year was solar and wind. They're losing that market steadily.
Good.
EVs are rising dramatically. They say they've slowed down. Well, we just got the new figures, an 18% increase year on year here in the United States. In many countries, much faster than that. And so their third market, they're telling Wall Street that they're going to make up all of the expected lost revenue in their first two markets by tripling the production of plastics over the next 35 years. Well, we might have a word to say about that. Is that realistic? Because we've already found, the scientists say, that some seabirds are manifesting symptoms like Alzheimer's disease from the plastic particles in their brains, and they found that it crosses the blood-brain barrier in humans, and the size of the amount has doubled just in the last decade.
Yeah, this is a problem I think we need to start taking more seriously. The proliferation of microplastics. Like, it's getting bigger, and we should probably be more worried about that than we are. Like, that probably is going to be like the lead poisoning of my generation, you know? Like, at some point we're going to get it out of our systems and be like, whoa, we're so much smarter when we don't have a fucking Transformers action figure worth of plastic in our brains.
Do we really want to continue that? It's crazy. But they are blocking action at both of these international forums, and they're blocking action in the deliberations of nation states, even in states and provinces, and even at the local level. Anywhere in the world where there is an effort to pass legislation or regulations that reduces the burning of fossil fuels, they are there with their money, with their lobbyists, with their captive politicians, blocking it as best they can. And the solution is what you're doing here in Climate Week here in San Francisco. We have got to rise up and change this situation. That's also why they are ballyhooing ridiculously expensive and hilariously impractical technologies like building giant mechanical vacuuming machines to suck it back out of the atmosphere after they put it up there. Could that someday be a realistic part of the solution? Perhaps, but not now, not even close. But they use it as a bright, shiny object to distract attention and say, see this? this could be so miraculous, we don't have to stop burning fossil fuels at all. We can actually continue to increase the burning of fossil fuels because look at this bright, shiny object. We've got this vacuuming machine. Well, CO2 is 0.035% of the molecules in the air. You're going to use an energy-intensive, ridiculous, expensive process to filter through the other 99.965% of the molecules. It's absolutely preposterous. In reality, the sustainability revolution is powering more and more of our global economy. It has the scale and impact of the Industrial Revolution, and it's moving at the pace of...
I do really like that response in particular. Like, as much as I would love that for like machines to just like actually efficiently capture carbon and like make it into more useful stuff, I don't think that's going to be the path forward out of this. You know, like for exactly the reason he put forward there. Like, you're going to do the work to filter 99.7% of like the global atmosphere to get out 0.035% of it. Like, no, you're not going to do that.
The digital revolution. By the way, in Texas, which used to have a free market for energy, over 90% of all their new electricity generation last year was solar and wind. And you know, they've got captured politicians there. They're pushing legislation in Texas to legally require any...
Yeah, trees do that for free. However, one thing that I recently learned, you know, all those like tree planting initiatives that were really hyped up, you know, like, oh, we're going to plant so many trees. Well, or like logging companies are like, yeah, we're gonna plant trees and it's gonna take the carbon out of the atmosphere. A lot of those trees planted by those initiatives just died. And also, in order for a tree to be a net carbon sink, it has to live for longer than 80 years. And like the trees that get planted by logging companies and then get logged on a timeline much lower than 80 years. So yeah. It's kind of one of those situations where in order to actually have a real carbon sink, you need to have like a forest and not the trees. You know, literally it's kind of like a we've been obsessing on the trees when we really needed to look at the forest. You know? No Justice, welcome Raiders. We're going over some Al Gore speaking at Climate Week. And it's good stuff. It's been a while since we talked about climate change on this show. Welcome, No Justice Raiders. Hey, Mad Mart.
Many developers of solar and wind to...
I clicked the wrong button. That's on me.
Spend time and money developing more oil and gas before they're given permission to develop renewables. That's not realism. That's pathetic. That is a sign of desperation. They don't trust the free market. They're just relying more and more on the politicians who will...
Well, to be fair, I also don't trust the free market. I don't think that the free market is really that in favor of climate change, anti-climate change solutions. But, you know, like, it's possible to squint and see a world where maybe that'd be the case, I guess. But something tells me neoliberalism is not going to solve us out of this crisis.
Jump when they tell them jump, and ask how high when they tell them to jump again. So around the world, the market is transforming. Since the Paris Agreement, the cost of solar has dropped 76%. The cost of wind is down 66%. Utility scale batteries are down 87%. In 2004, when Generation was founded, it took a full year for the world to install 1 gigawatt of solar power. Now it takes 1 hour to install 1 gigawatt of solar power.
That's pretty cool.
And it's not just renewables. We're seeing the sustainability revolution rapidly take hold across the rest of the global economy, from transportation to regenerative agriculture to circular manufacturing and so much more. So, as we gather here to kick off Climate Week and as we gather on the eve of Earth Day, we have to treat this moment as a call to action. So I'm here not only to respond to the invitation, for which I'm grateful, Morgan and others, and Evan. I'm here to recruit you. Many of you are already working on this, but those of you who are not, I'm here to recruit you. We need you. This is the time, this is a break glass moment. This is an all hands on deck moment. And now is the time to look at every aspect of your businesses, your investments, and your civic engagement to determine whether or not you can contribute even more to solving the climate crisis. It's easy to adopt our own versions of climate realism, to say that the challenge is too great. Some people worry about that. To say that our individual role is too small to have an impact. Some use that as an excuse, that if the government won't act, what can any of us do about it? Well, just as the climate crisis does not recognize borders between...
Major missed opportunity to call this Gore Fest.
And yes, it would be, you know what? Yes. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Sake Tanuki. God. That was good.
countries, it does not either recognize delineations between the duty of government and businesses and all significant participants in the global economy. Climate change is already impacting your life and work, and will more so through disrupted supply chains, increased liability, changes in consumer demand, and more. This is a moment when we all have to mobilize to defend our country. And remember, the antidote to climate despair is climate action. It was in this city in the 1960s that Joan Baez first said that the antidote to despair is action. And we need to remember that now. And during a time of when people were tempted to despair in the struggle for civil rights in this country, Martin Luther King said something about overcoming the forces that try to discourage you and halt progress. He said this: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. And that's where we are. And every one of the morally based movements in the past had periods when advocates felt despair. But when the central choice was revealed as a choice between right and wrong, then the outcome at a very deep level became foreordained. Because of the way Pope Francis reminded us we have been created as God's children. We love our families. We are devoted to our communities. We have to protect our future. And if you doubt for one moment ever that we as human beings have the capacity to muster sufficient political will to solve this crisis, just remember that political will is itself a renewable resource. Thank you very much.
Hey! Dude still has some of the juice. You know? He's got some gumption there. You know, political will itself is a renewable resource. Let's go. You know? And he's right. You know, like, one of the things we have to do, right, as we move forward against this administration, as we continue to build a movement in solidarity with one another against this fascistic, administration under Donald Trump, we have to keep in mind what we want to build after we win. We have to be able to, like, hold on to this idea of what we want. Of what we want. And I know what I want. I want a world with Medicare for all. I want a world that is dedicated to stopping climate change. Not just slowing it down, but stopping it dead in its tracks. We put a man on the goddamn moon. We put multiple men on the goddamn moon. We can do this. We can rise to the occasion. Okay? And I want housing for all. I want a war on homelessness. I want to end homelessness in this country. We can do it. We can do it. We are capable of so much better than what we do right now. And I think that we can actually build that future, but we have to all imagine it together. You know, we have to envision that better future, envision those better policies and actually pursue them. You know, like this needs to be, it's not just enough to fight against something. You have to fight for something. You have to have a vision of what will happen when you win. It's really, really important. And that's one of the key things that Bernie Sanders gets so right. And I think that is one of the things that the Democratic Party writ large gets so wrong. Okay? So wrong. And so with that, folks, we're end of segment. We did it. Al Gore still got some gumption, still got some juice. And you know what? I think that was a worthwhile use of our time. So thank you all for joining me for that.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat.